As I record this episode, we are facing the growing possibility that there may not be a Major League Baseball season at all this year in 2020. If that occurs, it would be the 9th time that we've had a work stoppage in Major League Baseball history. Earlier in the year, in March and April, we kind of expected that maybe the season wouldn't happen. After all, coronavirus or COVID-19 was running rampant everywhere, and to be honest, it's still running rampant in many locations. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people have been infected. Again, tens to hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives, at least partially due to this virus. So because it is so transmissible, there is fear for the players, there's fear for the training staffs, there's fear for the people at the stadiums, there's fear for the camera people, there's fear everywhere. We don't want people to continue to get sickened and to get infected, so we need to take whatever steps are necessary to get sports up and running again. Now, while the NBA has a plan in place and they're working on trying to get that done, while NASCAR has resumed their action, the PGA Tour resumed its action without any positive tests the last weekend. And with the NHL trying to get itself back on track, sports are trying to make some kind of comeback, at least as much as it possibly can in this new era of physical distancing and constant testing. Major League Baseball, however, while the coronavirus is certainly a factor, labor disputes and labor unrest is really the big issue that's facing the sport right now and could possibly be the thing that keeps baseball off the table for this year and possibly beyond. Now, when we have work stoppages in sports, we have sports video games to fall back on, at least for the short term, to keep our interest. And for baseball fans, this year is no different. We have a pair of baseball games to fall back on if we're baseball fans. The one most people tend to refer to and talk about is MLB The Show 20 for the PlayStation 4, a game that looks great, performs very well, looks just like a television broadcast, and is played by people the world over. It is a fantastic game, and if you don't have it already, I recommend it if you are a baseball fan. If you're not quite into the baseball simulations, however, RBI Baseball 20 might be the game for you. It's available for the Xbox One, for the Nintendo Switch, and also for the PlayStation 4. It is a little bit cheaper, and while it's slightly more on the arcade side, it may be easier to pick up and play for some more casual fans. So you do have the ability to create your own season this year, your own playoffs, your own World Series, and make your own season happen. The last time that we had a labor stoppage was August of 1994, and that was, 26 years ago now. In August of 1994, when the work stoppage happened, the season was 2/3 of the way complete, more than 2/3 of the way complete. In fact, we lost the last third of that season as well as the World Series that year, and fans were outraged, many promising to never come back to the sport at all. And it showed, because when the next season would resume in April of 1995, it was very difficult to get TV ratings and fan interest. It took an epic home run battle between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire to be able to get the sport on the map again and to get people interested in it. And unfortunately, as the story goes, both Sosa and McGwire were taking steroids at the time, which may or may not have affected their home run swings, and the controversy has kept both men out of Cooperstown and the Baseball Hall of Fame. But in 1994, when baseball ended, we were not left to just wonder what might happen. If you had a video game console, you could make your own season happen, especially the Sega Genesis, and I'm talking about the game that will be opening on Unsealed this week. It is, in my opinion, the best baseball game of the 16-bit era, and that is not a hyperbolic statement. It is one that I stand by. I am talking about 1994's World Series Baseball for the Sega Genesis, developed by Blue Sky Software and published by Sega. This was the way that we were going to be able to finish our season, even if we were bitter about it, even if we were angry at the players and the owners, we were still going to get some kind of closure, at least if we were video game fans, to the season that was being played out. Or perhaps we could take our own team that we were interested in and boost them into the playoffs and perhaps the World Series and give them a shot at the trophy that we've always wanted. World Series Baseball for the Genesis says here, real Major League Baseball. And if you look at the screens, I know it's difficult to see, and it may look old, but But in 1994, this looked awesome with this in the batter's box view, which was really close and tight, much different than we had seen in other baseball games. And you can see the strike zone as well, plus different pitch selections. And we'll get to the ins and outs of the game shortly. But the things that this game promised, when you look at the back of the case, were just awesome. It was hard to believe. All 28 major league teams in a new 6-division alignment. And again, the 6 divisions was new back then. We've gotten used to it since, but back then it was new. All 700 players were promised here, including your favorite stars. Many off-season free agent moves and trades are included. So if you wanted to pick up the season where you left off, or start a new abbreviated season, kind of where teams would leave off to see how they would finish the last 28 games, you could do it with the rosters that were intended with very little work if you had to do some late season changes. Sports Talk was back with improved play-by-play commentary, and to me, Sports Talk was everything. Sports Talk was what sold me on the Genesis to begin with. Playing through the Sports Talk football games was enough to sell me. The MLBPA Sports Talk baseball was okay, but this game improved on that many times over, and again, we'll get to that shortly. Features including a home run derby, which I still play to this day, batting practice, options for selectable or adjustable season lengths of 13 games, 26 games, 52 games, or a full 162-game season. There's league play here, and a battery backup here saves all your stats, saves your standings. There are no passwords to write down. It is just when you're done playing your game, and you've saved your progress, you can go ahead and turn it off, and when you've got more time to pick up the season, you go ahead and start playing again. This game is that good, and we're going to take a look at this new copy here. We're going to open this up, take a look at the instruction manual, and I'm going to share with you some of my own memories of 1994, because it was a year, let me just put it that way. So we do have the seal on here that we're going to go ahead and take off shortly. This does have a hang tab at the top as well that is cool. So if I wanted to display this on the wall, I can. And let's go ahead and open this up. This game, of course, is 26 years old. So this is definitely exciting to be able to open up a game like this, especially such an important game in my video game career or history, as it were. So there is the little hang tab there that I can kind of hold up to show you. And when we open up the case, oh gosh, this is awesome. There's a bunch of stuff in here. So let me show you first of all what this looks like. We have the manual and stuff over here. We have the cartridge right here. And I'm going to take out all of the stuff. I'm going to get that other thing out of the way. So the first thing that we have is we have a Sega Poster. Welcome to the next level. I actually have one of these hanging in my bedroom already. I'll probably take a picture of this for Instagram and Twitter. But you have an Eternal Champions poster, which is kind of cool. And then you have a list of all of the Sega games for 1994. Welcome to the next level was Sega's tagline back then, and is awesome. So you get that poster, which I always loved about 16-bit games because you never knew what else you were going to get. You also got this Sega Visions offer, enclosed winner's instruction manual. And this was Sega's official video game magazine. Get Sega Visions 6 months free and learn to win. So you get 6 free months with this. Unfortunately, Sega Visions doesn't exist anymore. But you also have some questions on here, such as what games what systems you play games on. Remember, this is 1994, so we're talking about the Lynx, the Atari Lynx, the Game Gear, the Philips CDI, remember that? The TurboGrafx CD, the 3DO, awesome console, the Jaguar, Game Boy, NES 8-bit, Super NES 16-bit, Genesis, Sega CD, and other. You also, what else do you have? You have a CD player, a Macintosh computer, a Laserdisc player, a PC, or a VCR. And what kinds of games do you play most often? Yep, I play a lot of sports games. You can tell by the hat and by the shirt. Sports are definitely my thing. So you could get 6 free months of Sega Visions with this. And, of course, we have the manual. Now, Sega Genesis manuals at this point were transitioned to black and white, which is what we have here. On the back of the manual, we have a Sega Sports ad for all of the games for both Genesis and Sega CD. NBA Action 94, which is NFL Football 94, which is very good. Pebble Beach Golf Links, which was also available for the Super Nintendo at the time. Greatest Heavyweights, which I wrote something on the Retro Referee website. I invite you to check that out. Wimbledon Championship Tennis. Joe Montana's NFL Football for the Sega CD, which you can pass on. NFL's Greatest and Prize Fighter, which are both kind of mediocre. So when we open up the manual, we do see some screenshots, but these manuals are not really set up all that well to show a great deal about the game itself. It does show the title screen there. I'll see if we can get to a screenshot that shows the basics, showing you the home run derby setup, showing you the batting stance or how batting is done, and it is very simple. It is not that difficult. We get to league play, showing you the different scheduling. You can control your lineup. Again, you have to remember, this is 1994. We take these things for granted in our baseball games now as well we should because the technology is there. But in 1994, as the 16-bit era was winding down, this was super, super impressive. We had seen it with other games before, like the battery backup and the season tracking. We had seen it for like Super Baseball Simulator 1000 on the Super Nintendo, for example. But to get the full Major League Baseball and MLBPA license, to get the stats, to get the battery backup, to get the adjustable seasons was an incredibly big deal. In 1994, at this time, I was still unemployed. I was looking for work, and I had, unfortunately, a bunch of downtime, and I didn't have a lot of money to spend. So the money that I was saving at the time, scraping and saving after paying my bills with my unemployment money, was able to finally land me a copy of World Series Baseball, and it was worth the money because I played that game. That is one of the games that made me put away NBA Jam entirely in 1994. I was playing it on the regular still when this game came out, and then I kind of forgot about it because I was lost in baseball, and it is that good. The batting is fairly simple. The pitching is kind of reminds me of hardball a little bit, and then you select a pitch type, and then you select where you want it to go. It is possible in the easier difficulty settings to really paint the corners and to really rack up a lot of strikeouts, but as you increase the difficulty, that becomes harder and harder to do. Batting also becomes harder as you increase the pitch speed and trying to time your swing to be able to make good contact. I could talk tons about how the sports talk element of the game just drew me in. I've always been a fan of presentation in sports games, and World Series Baseball is no different. Although there's a lot of repetition and sometimes the commentary tends to lag a little behind, again, for 1994, this was really impressive to me. The way that the game was presented, the way that it looked, the way that it tracked stats. It was all that I wanted from even going back to hardball in 1984. This was my prayers answered. And it was easy enough to play, and I was not the best sports game player yet at that point. While I was playing NBA Jam, a lot of my sports simulations I was struggling with. So to be able to have the adjustable difficulties and to have them really adjustable, where the easiest difficulty setting was really easy and kind of guided you in, and then you could incrementally set the difficulty higher, was to me a very big deal. I could go on and on about this game, but the fact that I have a brand new copy of the game to be able to play and to be able to have opened just like I did in 1994, 26 years ago, is an awesome feeling. That's why I do these unsealings, because for me, to be able to replicate the feeling of opening these games for the first time when you really just have the memories. So to be able to actually do it, to be able to see all of the contents that are inside, to be able to remember where you were or what you were doing or what things were like at the time, was a big deal. And unfortunately, as we face another work stoppage in baseball, I am reminded that we still have ways to be able to cope with not having this favorite sports that we want to see on TV. Sometimes there are things that are out of our control. Sometimes it's labor disputes, and unfortunately in 2020, sometimes it's just Mother Nature saying now is not the time. But thanks to video games, and one of the many reasons that I've been a video game fan for most of my life, you have the ability to play these things out and to kind of fill that absence, at least a temporary absence, until things get back to normal. And believe me when I say, as dark as things may sound, they will get back to normal someday. As always, I thank you for watching this episode of Unsealed. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you check out my website at retroreferee.com for more retro sports game stuff. And until the next time, my friends, take care of yourselves and each other. and we'll see you later.